Good morning. I'm in BC, so it's morning. It might be afternoon where you are. My name is Doris Livingstone, and I'm the homeschool lead at Action for Canada. And it's a true joy to do this. I'm a veteran myself, a homeschool veteran. I homeschooled my kids for 17 years, K to 12, and they're all doing very well in life and had the best years ever. So I'm just going to take you over to our website, and I'm just going to show you how to find some information on our website, everything regarding homeschooling. So this is the home page, and if you head over to current issues and scroll down, you will see Homeschooling Revolution. And on here is everything homeschooling. So if you want to find your province, you go to the directory here and you choose your province. And each one will show the Homeschool Association contact information, and it's all done alphabetical order. And so I'm just going to go back on the screen. No, I'm not. I'm going to go back to the, well, maybe I will. Yeah, I'm going to go there. Back on this screen, if you scroll down some more, you'll see where all our homeschool webinars are. And just below that, the conventions. So we've got some already listed here for 2025, and I'll keep adding them as we get more information there. These ones were from last year, so you can see a little bit about what they were doing. If you tap on homeschool webinars, you can see everything we've done over the last year and a half, and great information there. This one was really fun with Prepper Dan. He's from Nova Scotia, and just as a homeschool dad, he talked about everyday educational creativity. I think he has 8 or 9, 10 kids, so he's a busy guy. And how to make the most of summer, which we're wrapping up now as we move into the school year. And David Hunt from the Aristotle Foundation for Public Policy Canada gave us a research study on how homeschoolers are faring, and they interviewed, I think they were from age 21 to age 39. And so there's lots of homeschoolers now that are in their late 30s, early 40s. And how are they doing today? They scored high in almost every category, I think like 99%. Higher than public school, higher than independent school, higher than Christian school. So that was a really great interview to watch. Peter Stock is our president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association in Canada, and he also talked a bit about stats and trends. That's a good one. Dorinda Wilson, she's awesome. I've had her twice, and she's a speaker, author, podcaster. If you want to tap into her website, dorindawilson.com, she's got such encouraging information on staying the course and every battle and issue you come up against. So I'm just going to stop the share there. I'm just going to bring in a few more people. And Lori, if you see them, just bring them in if you don't mind, if you see that sign up there. Thank you. Anyways, I'm just going to introduce you now to our panel of homeschool moms and leaders across Canada. And we've got Jilene Hay and her husband Dwayne. They live in BC with their 4 children. They're ages 7 to 16. Together they run a home-based natural health and wellness business. Entering their 11th year of homeschooling, Jilene is passionate about raising leaders who are each empowered to fulfill their unique God-given purpose. She is a vocal advocate for freedom and faith, a critical thinker, and a truth seeker. Welcome, Jilene. And Lori Dunbar is a recently retired homeschool mom after graduating 2 of her daughters. In her home education journey, Lori served on the Saskatchewan School Board for 4.5 years, including a term as the interim president. Deeply convicted that education is discipleship, Lori seeks to encourage parents to steward these years well, and we will be talking about that later in the session. And finally, we have Emily Ross. She's a 48-year-old mom and chair of the PEI Home Education Board, entering her 14th year home educating. 2 of her 3 children have since graduated high school and moved on to other things. She began homeschooling when her first 2 children were in public school. They actually approached her and asked her to teach them at home in the summer between school years. She decided midway through August that it was worth at least researching after recognizing their struggle in the classroom. Their laments of missing her while away for the day and their personalities changing in ways she didn't believe were beneficial. Best decision she ever made. And so we're going to start there, Emily. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that experience and how you got started homeschooling?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I think that's very succinct, but essentially, my daughter did grade 1, and then there was no kindergarten here on the island at that time. When my daughter entered grade 2, my son entered kindergarten, and then before they went into the next year, I pulled them out. Like I said in that bio, my daughter's personality changed dramatically. My husband and I were extremely worried that there was some sort of abuse or something that was going on. It just did not make a lot of sense to us. The explosive behavior that she was having at home after getting off the bus. We learned that there was a lot of negative interactions with her and her teacher that year, and how she was made to feel being put on the spot and trying to cope, and it just wasn't boding well for her. Now, my son did wonderfully in class, but because I think he was a little bit more forward thinking, he would have been ready for grade 2. So he was bored. And yeah, it was all of this culmination of all of these things. And then the last straw was them just asking me to homeschool them. We didn't know anybody that homeschooled. They were just like, they saw at the time I was a children's pastor and in 2 different churches, and they saw me as a teacher, and they were just like, how come we can't just stay home with you? And why can't you just teach us? And initially I was not interested in that, but then I just thought, well, it would be worth asking. So I literally just went on Facebook and was like, does anybody know anybody locally that homeschools? And it turned out that a lady that I had met at various Christian conferences, just as, an acquaintance, actually homeschooled. And she met me literally the next day. And I am an early childhood educator. So I was wondering, am I going to be qualified? Can I do this? Like, do I have the resources? Because I didn't have money to put into that. And anyway, she just assured me that I was in a good place and had what it takes and was off to a good start. And so I did 2 weeks before school started.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Thank you, Emily. Jilene, you want to share your story, why you got started and when?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I am not an educator. I didn't even know that I necessarily wanted to be a mom, but God just gave us these beautiful children, and it's actually been such a beautiful calling. I think for me, I grew up in a place, again, no homeschooling wasn't a thing around me. I thought homeschooled kids were super weird. I just had that kind of stipulation in my head, that idea. And then when we were going to church, our children were really little, and we met some homeschooled kids that were just thriving and doing these really cool things and just experiencing, they were experiencing life and doing things that I thought, that's an adult thing. Why are these kids doing these things? And they're on the worship team and they're just doing neat things. And I thought, you know what, this actually is something I should explore. So I would say it was definitely a deep conviction from that beginning. And really, when I started to look at it, it was that lifestyle. And, I felt convicted these were our children. And if we were going to send them to Caesar, we would not expect them to turn out anything but like Caesar. And I wanted something different for my kids. I wanted them to to not have to experience the rush of life of going to school and sending them off to school, and they're there being, you know, I'll say indoctrinated in a lot of ways, not aware of what they're learning or that sort of a thing. We wanted to really kind of take that time and pour into our kids' unique and special giftings and allow them to experience a slower paced lifestyle, really pouring into what their specific gifts and talents were. And so in kindergarten, when our daughter was going to kindergarten, I just kind of took that leap of faith, and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll figure it out as we go with each kid year by year. And it's been absolutely such an amazing experience. Lots of highs, lots of lows, but the best decision we ever made. So yeah.
I agree. Best decision I ever made. Laura, you want to share your story?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Lori Dunbar. I'm from Saskatchewan, and I just finished my 14th year homeschooling, and now my kids are all done. So I actually have 4 children, 2 stepkids that actually went through the public school system. And when they were in elementary school, we realized, okay, this isn't actually working. We were just finding that they were running behind and not meeting our expectations that we found out were actually higher than the school boards. And so we started thinking, you know what, doing the same thing twice and expecting different results is probably not wise. So when our younger 2 were growing up and getting near school age, we just thought, you know what, let's just try homeschooling. Let's see if it works for us, maybe do it for a few years and give them a good foundation. So we did, and found out that we loved it. And I did it for educational reasons, but actually what kept me going was discipleship, realizing that I can disciple my kids. I can give them, you know, like almost a Bible college experience all the way through their schooling and have these wonderful relationships and give them opportunities that they couldn't have otherwise. And our schedule was just very flexible, and just even the interaction and the relationship that they had was just so worthwhile. So yeah, so I've had 2 kids go through the school system in public and private education, Christian education, and then 2 kids fully homeschooled all the way through, and I have loved it. So
That's wonderful. Lori, let's start with you on the first question. Am I good enough and am I qualified to do the job, to teach our kids at home?
well, God thinks so, because he gave you those kids. And if you can potty train your kids, if you can teach them their colors, you know what it takes to educate your kids, and you will love them, and you will be more aware of their strengths and weaknesses and how to play to their strengths than any teacher can ever. So when those kids go into a classroom of 25, 30 or so kids, they're not being loved individually. The curriculum is not being geared towards them. It is a general curriculum. So when you get to be at home with your kids, you get to personalize their studies. You get to help them to go at their pace. I found that it's amazing how different brains develop at different times. And you get to watch this and you get to experience like, okay, I think they're ready for this. Or, you know what, that's actually not working. Instead of making them feel stupid or like they're not good enough, let's just hold off on that for a little while and let's revisit that in a little while. So even if you don't have like, you know, a degree or letters behind your name, God says that you are completely qualified to raise and to educate your children. And it's not something that we can, in our culture, we think that, you know, everything has to be a certain way because we've been taught that. And it's just not true. So like Romans 12 talks about don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. And that means education as well. That means that we can think differently about education. And if you look back at a lot of the geniuses in the times past, they were educated at home by moms that didn't have, you know, a whole lot of education themselves. They just gave opportunities to learn and to grow in an environment where they can succeed. So yeah, you are fully qualified to educate your children.
Truly. And Emily, if I wanted to flip the question around, we were just talking prior to going live here about the personality of the parent. And in your case, as a mom, sometimes like we're so concerned about the children, but as a mom, we too have our own learning styles. And so I was a bit eclectic. I was all over the place with different kids according to them. But, you know, my mind was a racer. So just talk a little bit about what you were telling us earlier about as a parent and being a teacher.
Well, I'm sure I have ADHD. We have some neurospicy people in our family. And yeah, I think that I'll tell you a little story. Like at the first 6 months or so of homeschooling, I actually had a giant breakdown. And I went to, we were taking music classes with other homeschooler kids, and I was talking with parents, and there was a particular parent there that just very calm, stable, beautiful Christian woman, and was a seasoned homeschooler. And I just said, like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I feel like it has brought out the ugly in me. And I don't like who I am. I don't think that this is best for my kids. And like, I feel like I'm just failing. And she said something to me that I think, you know, we've heard other times, but you know how when God just speaks in that, just that perfect moment that just touches your heart. And she said, you know, Emily, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Mm.
And it really helped me to evaluate, like, what is my why? Why am I homeschooling? And like, how did God make me? And isn't that good? And maybe the ugly that I felt it was coming out wasn't new. It's just stuff in my heart that's bubbling up under pressure that I need to submit to Christ and to learn how to be discipled by Him. And I think at that moment, I realized that homeschooling wasn't just for my kids' formation of character, but also for mine, and that God was going to use that fire that to be a training time for both of us. And so it was okay that I wasn't like other homeschool moms. It was okay that I thought differently. It was okay even that I struggled, and that I could be honest with my kids about that we could dialogue, and that I could learn from them. I didn't need to know everything. God would train me and show me my next steps as I relied on Him.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think we can all nod our heads as mothers. We've all learned that we've learned probably just equally as much as our children through the journey of being the parent on that side of things. Lori, how will I get my kids to listen to me?
A lot of relationship, doesn't it? You know, my daughters at home are still teenagers, actually. And I've been thinking a lot about this, about your kids will do more out of obedience to you because they know of your love than they will if they are just told to obey or told, oh, honor your mother or whatever. I think it's actually a lot to do with relationship, that they are seen, that they are heard, that they know that they're understood. And when they are understood and when they have that good relationship, then they're happy to obey. In my experience with my 4 kids, it's a lot about relationship. But also it has to do with your habits. So if you don't expect them to listen, then they're probably not going to. And if you don't follow through with what you've just said, if you said we're going to leave in 5 minutes, then you need to leave in 5 minutes. And if you have that pattern of them not listening to you, then that's okay. I was at a beach this summer, and I was watching a mom with her son, and she probably told him for about 45 minutes to get out of the water and that they were going to leave. And she didn't, you could tell he was already set, that he didn't have to listen, that there weren't consequences to his actions. And they don't need to be emotional consequences for you. It's actually better if they're not emotional, if they're very matter of fact, like, oh, that's too bad, I guess you won't be able to blank. So if they can understand that you mean what you say, and you have reasonable expectations. So you know what, if they need a 10-minute warning that, okay, we're going to change subjects, or we're going to be doing this soon, or they know the expectations set on them, and understanding that they have different needs. One of my children really, really likes to be early. She would like to be the first one to everything, and that doesn't always work out. And sometimes I would work with that and help her with her anxiety about that, but also understand that that's really important to her. So when I could get early, when she could be there early, then I would facilitate that. So understanding your kids and you knowing their needs versus wants, and them knowing your love for them goes a long way in a relationship. And I think we all understand that you will do more out of love than you will out of obligation.
I think also, just to add to everything you said, Lori, I agree. It's really a key component of that is actually communicating what your expectations and your goals are, right? If you want your kids to listen to you, they have to know what the expectations are. If it's just in your head, if you forget to communicate that, then it's very confusing for children. So just a really key, very practical, like recommendation for people, if you want your children to listen to you, is to actually figure out what you're expecting and if that's reasonable, and communicate that well to your children, and what your goals are. And those can even come with, like, piggybacking off of your idea of the relationship, is also listening to your kids. Like, what, if you want your kids to listen to you, you need to listen to them. What are their needs, like you said, and make it, cooperative, so that, they're understanding the reasonings for your expectations. I think it's also much easier for someone to follow someone else's lead if they know where they're going and they know why they're going there.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
reasonable expectations too, just again, with what Emily was saying, if you're telling an ADHD child to do something that's not going to be possible for them, you're setting them up for failure. But if you can understand that, their personalities and their strengths and their age and what's reasonable, so that you can set them up for success, that's important.
One of the very first things I remember hearing a speaker, probably in the 90s, because I started in 90. When did I start? 95. And it stayed with me my whole years of homeschooling, was establishing discipline in the home. And what that means is, like, the discipline, the expectations, and the things we've just talked about. And for some of you who are just starting, you're probably thinking, well, I don't know how that's going to happen. That's okay. You have like a year, 2 years. It takes a while for mom and kids to figure out those roles in that area, in actually all of the areas that we're going to be talking about today. And so part of what we're doing here today is to encourage you to just lean back and enjoy the next year, the next 2 years, as you establish all these things, one at a time, sometimes 2 or 3 at once, but it will come together. And we are always here for you. You can always reach out to us at Action for Canada if you have questions. And I'll put my email in the chat there. And I also wanted to say, if you do have questions, you can pop them in the chat. We will have a Q&A if we have enough time at the end. We can also have some discussion. So Jilene, we're going to move on to the next question. Will my kids meet the learning outcomes? Maybe first describe what learning outcomes, what it means, and then go from there.
Sure. Okay. Well, my first question would be, whose learning outcomes are you trying to meet, right? So we have a couple of different routes that you can take as homeschoolers. I know it's different across the Canada, and depending on where you're from, what those particular learning outcomes might be. In BC, you have a route of going as an enrolled student where you have an expectation to meet the BC ministries, education ministries outcomes, learning outcomes. And a lot of these, they changed recently, so they're not like, they have to do A, B, C, and D, as opposed to like, these are the specific skills that we're looking for. So if you're just looking to get those specific skills or whatever those learning outcomes might be, there's so many different options for curriculums and resources and co-ops and that sort of a thing that you can tap into. But I think even more importantly than that is understanding like, what are the learning outcomes that you're actually looking for? Is it because you want to meet the government of BC's learning outcomes, or do you have specific learning outcomes for your individual child? In BC, we have a registered route again. That's your other option. And with that one, there isn't an expectation to meet the registries or the ministry's outcomes, but really there's that freedom to really explore your individual child. And maybe your child is extremely mechanically driven, or they're extremely mathematic, and you can really pour in and develop those specific areas. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about homeschooling, is that you can prepare your children to meet what their specific and unique calling is, and you can really design an education and a love of learning around those particular skills. And I mean, I think what I've noticed when I look at what what we put out in the general school system is that we pump out these kids that have an expectation to do science and socials and English and language, like, and math, and just all of this kind of a jack of all trades kind of a thing, as opposed to really putting out people who are specifically experts in whatever their field is. And I think if we can create that love of learning and that desire within our children for them to really kind of grasp that love of learning and explore what those outcomes are for themselves, setting specific goals as they get older. Obviously, the goals of a kindergartner are going to be very different than somebody who's in high school. But I would suggest just really getting passionate about what your why is for yourself as an educator, as the one who's leading your children, and then helping your children to develop that why for themselves. What is it that they're really wanting to learn that particular year, or that sort of thing. And then you can find curriculum and that sort of thing to support those particular desires and goals that you have. So that's kind of my suggestion there.
Jilene, why don't we move into curriculum and how to find curriculum and the right curriculum that matches that child's learning style?
Yeah. Okay. So that's always going to be something that is going to be so individualized. And I think that's, again, one of the beautiful things about homeschooling is that you can find curriculum that meets that child's need. So, we've got 4 kids. They all have different personalities and different ways that they learn. So, what I've used with my first child might not be the curriculum I use with my 4th child, because they're different people. And so I would say one of the suggestions I have is be okay to pivot and understand that the curriculum is a tool. It is not everything. It is not like you have to go through and check box every single lesson and every single resource that they lead you to, but be prepared to pivot and really, use those curriculum and tools to help your children learn. And then be okay of switching. Like last year, we ended up switching our daughter's math curriculum partway through the year because I was watching her and I was like, they're just, I've used this curriculum with my other 2 kids. Why is it not reaching her? Why is it not working for her? And so we ended up switching and trying something new. And she loved learning again, right? So I think just being open to pivoting, there's a lot of amazing organizations, and depending on where you are, if you have a teacher that works with you or just different moms, talk to moms about what they're using and what they're working. Most curriculum suppliers actually have printable chapters that you can use, that you can bring in and actually just try with your kids and see, does it stick? Does it work? And try a few different things and see what helps that unique and individual child to learn.
Yeah, I think also if you can find something that you're excited about as a parent, your kids are gonna like gravitate to that and they're gonna be excited about it. And one of the things that says, where can I find curriculum? When I first started homeschooling, I was drowning in all of these who's Charlotte Mason and what's, just all these it just was so overwhelming for me. It wasn't until that spring that I went to a homeschool conference and I was able to put my hands on, touch, feel, look through, because talking to other people and everything, I'm a visual person. For me to be able to actually just look at the curriculum, if you know somebody's homeschooling, to ask them, can I actually see that? Like, can I flip through that? Can I borrow that for a week and see if that might be something that you like, and that might spark, interest for you or whatever. And I love what you said about pivoting. I have that on my notes. I said, are you going to persevere or are you going to pivot? It's hard sometimes to know what to do because you want to teach your children how to be diligent. You want to teach them how to work hard and to push through. Frustration's not always a bad thing. Learning how to power through your frustration and work hard is a skill. But you do things until it doesn't work. If it's not working, it's okay to pivot.
Mhm.
No, I agree. I had to do a few changes myself. And like you said, these conventions, for me were like my lifeline, because being able to go and look and see the curriculum, like you, Emily, I had to see it. And I know I've borrowed stuff from Jilene and it worked really well for my granddaughter. And I find curriculum over the years had to resonate with me. I thought, if I remember in the early days, like there was these big, thick books from a university for homeschoolers. And I went, wow, we're going to get smart kids, but I don't get anything out of the book. I was completely overwhelmed. And that was when I started asking around, what are you using? What are you using? Can I look at that? Can I try it for a day? Whatever, right? And it just, again, you got to give yourself time if you're just starting out, and that's okay. BC and Alberta, I'm not sure about across the country, but they do offer curriculum packages depending on the school that you register under. Sometimes those work very well, but oftentimes parents do have a say in saying, can we swap this out for science? And can we use this? Because I feel like this is going to work better for my child. I did that when that first was implemented in BC, and they were totally fine. Parents were still in control. And so there's different ways to do it. And the only way really to know how your laws work in your province is go back to our website where it lists the directory, all the provinces. Reach out to your provincial association and find out how your options are for your province, because I'm sure they're a little different for you, Emily, and for you, Lori, right, in your provinces. But teamwork, you share ideas, and that's what support groups are also all about.
Can I just add something too? When it comes to curriculum, I want to encourage people, it is not just about what you're going to learn in the books. The books are there. They're a great tool. They give you some guidance and kind of a bit of a system. But we've had the opportunity, and I've always had this dream in me since I was, before I even had kids, that I didn't want my kids to learn about Rome from a textbook. I wanted them to walk the streets of Rome, right? There's just something so valuable with just living life together and having those conversations and being around people and learning different skills. And so you're not just going to get all of your education from a textbook or sitting in a classroom. In fact, like a classroom is not necessarily the best type of a setting for a lot of kids. In fact, most kids. And so getting out into the world and actually experiencing things and talking to other people. And, like as my kids are getting older, I'm looking at my 13-year-old son and I'm kind of like, he's kind of getting to the point where the books aren't really doing it for him. But if you can get that kid and get his hands into something, if he can get his hands dirty, if he can have a conversation with somebody who would be a good mentor for him, those are kind of the experiences that I'm looking for now. So it's less about curriculum in a lot of ways, as it is just like looking for opportunities for them to learn and develop more skills and that sort of a thing in the areas that they're really intrigued with and what they're excited to learn about. And so, and also just getting their hands on good quality literature and good books. There's so much that they can learn just by reading. So if we can create that love of learning and that love of reading, those are kind of the big skills that will propel our kids into really achieving what their goals are and just open the doors of possibility for what they can learn. So it's less about the curriculum. Again, those are the tools, but it's not everything. So yeah.
Agree. And if I can just add that if you have multiple children, if you can group your subjects and do like maybe social studies all together, or even science, depending on the age group, all together, there's some curriculum that you can do and use that way as well, or unit studies, gather round. There's lots of different resources. So you don't feel like you have to get a single curriculum for each and every child. So they can all have different curriculum, but generally speaking, maths are the one that maths and your language development, where you're writing, spelling, those kinds of things are going to have to be individualized, but so much can actually be done for multiple age groups. So, you can teach to your higher age group. So if you have a grade 6 and you have a kindergarten, that kindergartner will pick up what they can from the grade 6 level, and you can make it interactive. Like, like, okay, we're gonna outline what a canoe would look like on the St. Lawrence River, or something like that, to involve your 5 or 6 year old, but you can really gear it towards your older children. So I love doing that. I loved being able to do as much as we could together. So that kind of simplifies your day too.
I'm just having a thought here. Maybe in the future, we'll cover a couple of webinars, one on us teaching styles. So Emily, you talked about Charlotte Mason. That was a style I did gravitate to because it freed me up. It was a great approach, but it doesn't work for everybody. And sometimes you're going to hear these things popping around as new homeschoolers. You're going, I don't know what that means. Or like even when we said the word like a co-op or a pod, like what are those, right? And maybe Jilene, just talk a little bit about what a co-op is and what it looks like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love co-ops. They're basically a group learning environment for kids. So there's parent-run co-ops, there's community co-ops, we have one here that's run by a homeschool organization. So there's different ways of doing it. What a co-op does is it kind of gives your kids an opportunity to be around other kids, and usually it's kind of a range of kids. So they're not all just like grade 1s with grade 1s and grade 2s with grade 2s. There's oftentimes a little bit of a variety in those ages, which I think is actually so valuable for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
But a co-op, it just kind of gives a little bit of that community learning environment for your kids, a little bit more like a school, but still oftentimes you're controlling what they're learning, and oftentimes they're parent run. So one parent might be like, I'm really passionate about art, I'm going to teach art. And another one might be, I'm very passionate about literature, I want to teach literature. So there's different opportunities. And you can really, again, you'll hear me say this over and over again. I love just kind of honing in on your specific skills and giftings and talents and using those. And I think as moms, we can use our own skills and our talents to help not just our own kids, but other kids as well. And so co-ops often give that opportunity for that group learning environment, and for you to kind of take some of the things off of your plate and maybe kind of share that responsibility. And I'll say too, if you can get into a parent-run co-op, there's just something so valuable for you as a parent to be alongside other homeschool families. It gives you, you'll realize very quickly that we all feel like we're ill-equipped to do this at times. We feel like we're all failing at times, and you'll know, like, okay, lift each other up, remind each other why you're doing this. And there's just something so special about that community aspect of a co-op. And so I would suggest, if you don't have a co-op in your area, make one. Find another family that you can run with. Even if you live out in the middle of nowhere, find a way of doing it and connecting with other families, even online or something like that, where you're just being able to connect in regularly with that community. But yeah, there's just so many possibilities when it comes to that.
Another benefit of co-op is for the child to experience having somebody else as a teacher. I think that that's really beneficial to see that people do things differently there. If they've only been homeschooled, then, they might have a Sunday school teacher, or but they would have very limited, other people as that role in their life. So I think it's also beautiful that for them to see and to meet with other people, and for you, if it's a parent-run co-op, which I was involved with lots of years ago, to learn from each other, right? Teaching techniques and interacting, and like you said, support. But just wanted to add that benefit is also just for them, for your child to have, you know, experience with multiple or different teaching styles and people.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Lori, I noticed your comment in the chat about unit studies. I remember the first time I heard that word, I went, what is a unit study? Could you explain that and the benefits of it?
Yeah, so unit studies just incorporate different subjects in studying one thing. So if you're studying maybe Europe for one unit study or something like that, then you're going to actually be reading some of the literary works from that area. Or if it was like ancient Rome, you might be reading some ancient poems or something like that. And you'll also look into some of the maybe the discoveries, the scientific discoveries of that. Or so it incorporates several different subjects in the one area of study. So they're going to try to do like history or social studies or science and language and math, like all in one subject. So it just helps with being able to, you know, cover a bunch at the same time, especially for young kids. And so, you know, for the month, you're going to be studying one area. So whether that be, you know, like again, ancient Rome, like kind of what Jilene was saying. So you might be cooking some food from that time period. Maybe it's over an open fire, or maybe it's, you know, so it's experiencing it in different ways that you can kind of make it come to life for them and incorporate it into your whole day. It's fun.
Yeah. The one thing I loved about unit studies, which I did a lot of, is the experiences. In hindsight, what I valued most and what I would encourage is touch and feel and experience and taste and walk and explore and try again. And yeah, you got your formal papers to do in the morning, but like do hands-on. I mean, I know for me, I learn best that way too. Instead of somebody telling me what to do, it's like I want to do it. And I've watched it in my children and now in my grandchildren that when I give them the chance to do it, like let's mix the bowl or whatever, they're far more engaged, and you can talk while you're mixing the bowl and why you add this and stir it at a certain time, etc. So yeah, that's what you do actually outside those formal hours, which maybe we'll go there now. Emily, what do I do with my kids after their formal schoolwork is done?
Yeah, I liked that question. Jilene spoke a lot to specific gifting. And one of my favorite things about being homeschooled is that my children have had ample time to cultivate their own interests. So my daughter follows very much in my husband's footsteps, and she did so much art in her free time. She never could have done that if she was in a public school. My son fell in love with magic, like cards and tricks, and the kid would sit down and read, and like, I'm not kidding, like encyclopedias and manuals of how to do various things. Now my daughter's graduated from a graphic design program and is trying to figure out what next art thing she wants to do. And my son is a professional magician. He gets paid a lot of money to, you know, do cocktail parties and festivals and birthday parties. And, you know, those are the things that I don't believe they would be like living out their passions and doing the things that they love if they didn't have this extra time to cultivate the things that they were interested in. So I wrote a list here. I said, what do I do with my kids after their formal work is done? First of all, I wrote underneath with a question mark, like, does it have to be with me? And like, I don't have to be with my child that whole day. It's healthy for them to be alone. It's healthy, not saying that I don't ever want to spend time with my children, but it's healthy for them to direct some of their own day and have some of that own time. So I said, you use that time to steward your home well. You use that time to practice hospitality. You use that time to seek after the Lord in your own private time. You use that time to relax, to go outdoors, to, socialize with other homeschooling families, and to cultivate your own interests. That's my list.
For us, we also run a home-based business. So we'll make sure we get our work done in the morning with our schoolwork, but then it's like, okay, well, I have work I have to do as well. So I just want to encourage people, you don't have to give up everything that you do just to homeschool your kids. It can come alongside your life, and you can kind of create a lifestyle designed to work with your family and what your family's needs are. And so I love that those afternoons after we're done our schoolwork, that the kids can do exactly what you said and just kind of find their own exploratory activities and dig into what their skills are. We'll also use that time for different classes or sports, or our kids are also involved in theater, or there's a lot of places that have different activities set aside for homeschool families. So you might be able to find an afternoon sports thing or something like that, which I actually love. I think our evenings, I find our evenings are so special for us, and we've always valued coming together around a meal. And I actually, right now, or it will be in the fall, where our kids are in sports activities, and they're always around like 5 o'clock in the evening, which is so frustrating. So it's like, no, that's our special family time. But there are opportunities to jump into different enriching activities and that sort of a thing outside of that formal learning in the morning. You can kind of jump into that afternoon, or connecting with families, or playing, or just, yeah, doing whatever it is that kind of you need to do as a family.
Jilene, why don't we move into a little bit about the whole socialization? You talked about the activities that they are connecting outside of the home. So that's a starting point for getting socialized. But yeah, what else do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest concerns I hear from families that are wanting to homeschool or considering it, but they're like, but my kids need to be around other kids. Well, my kids are around other kids all the time. So I don't know what this idea is that somehow you're going to have this little isolated pod of children that don't know how to communicate with the world. That's certainly not my goal with my family, and it's not my children's goal either. The big question I would say to people is like, well, who is socializing your kids, right? If you're sending them into a public school system, there are around 25 other kids their own age for 6 hours a day. What are they learning in that socialization? And is that actually who you want mentoring your children? One of the things that really struck me about homeschooling and really got me excited about it was this idea that I was watching these homeschooled kids be able to have an amazing conversation with somebody who was twice their age, while at the same time being able to pick up a little one and be able to interact with the child as well. And so this is one of the most beautiful things I see in homeschooled kids, is that they really can relate to people of all ages and stages. And there's just like a special gentleness about that. And again, this is where coming alongside other homeschooled families is really special if you can make that happen. But there is absolutely no shortage of socialization in our children, but we get to control more of who they're socializing with. And I think that that is especially key when we're looking at a world that's getting increasingly darker, and you can see the agendas that are at play against our children. We have to set up barriers to protect our children and protect their hearts and steward their hearts well. If we're sending them out into the wolves, you just lose that opportunity to be able to control more of who they're going to be socializing with and what that socialization looks like. And so I think that that's especially important in this day and age. But I would say there's absolutely no shortage of socialization. It's just this, yeah. Who do you want socializing your kids? Who do you want your kids interacting with? Because they're going to turn out to be the average of the 5 people they spend the most time with, right? And do you want that to be a group of 11-year-olds, just being the core influence on your children. I think it's really important that we take that ownership back. It's like, I should be the most influential person in my child's life because I love them more than anybody. They've been gifted to me. They're my responsibility. I want that core influence to be my husband and myself, and then the people that we kind of choose to surround ourselves with. And so I think that don't worry about socialization. They're going to get it. And as they get older, they're going to find it even more as like technology opens as well, right? So if we can kind of do those things to really protect their hearts and guard their hearts as much as possible, I think that that's absolutely essential, especially in this day and age.
Yes, and to add to that, I think sometimes homeschool kids, well, not sometimes, often homeschool kids and families do stand out from, the run-of-the-mill families around. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's actually kind of what we're going for. And to realize that maybe people are often asking, like, how do you socialize your kids or whatever? It's actually, we're socializing our kids in a more round forum. And they might appear to be awkward to mainstream because they're actually more mature socially than those in the public school of the same age and grade as them. So I think they just stand out, and people coin that as awkward, but it's actually not awkward. It's actually mature. It just stands out because they're beyond their years.
That's good. Yeah, in the chat, I added positive socialization versus negative socialization. And as a parent, Jilene, I agree. Like we have a lot of say. I remember when my girls were about 11, 12, 13, and the whole sleepover thing. Can I have so-and-so over as a sleepover? And you found out pretty quick. So I always wanted the kids to come to my house so I could evaluate these kids. These were kids from the community that my daughters made friends with. And over time, I went, you know what? So-and-so really actually doesn't bring anything valuable to their friendship. So no more sleepovers with that particular friend. And eventually we were down to like two healthy kids that were great to have in the home and a blessing. And we were able to be a big part of their lives too. And so that's the benefit of being involved as a parent, and looking out for great kids and versus ones that aren't going to help your kid at all. Let's switch gears here, Lori, and talk about education and discipleship. What does that look like, and how do we steward these years that we have them home?
That's probably my favorite question, but I'll try to be succinct here. Yeah, like I said in the beginning in my intro, like what led me into homeschooling was quality of education, but what kept me in homeschooling was discipleship. And when I married my husband, he had 2 kids from his previous marriage that he was widowed. And I started my time as being a mom out thinking, okay, I have a guaranteed 10 years with my son before he's going to be 18. What am I going to do with that? What do I want him to learn? What do I want to invest in him? How do I want him to experience the Lord, and how do I foster that? So with each of my kids, I've been pretty intentional about like who disciples them. So that's part of what I absolutely love about homeschooling, is that I get to disciple them. I get to make that part of our day. So with stewarding your time, I think my homeschooling transformed when I actually got into a routine of Bible time, of discipleship time. So we would go through the Bible, we would go through books sometimes, depending on their ages. We'd go through some Bible studies, we did different Bible studies on, like Daniel, or just different things that according to their age group, what they were interested in. So that was key for me, and being able to Lots of people say that, yes, it is really important to be around your kids when they're little, but it is just as or more important to be around your kids when they're teenagers, because they're thinking about things. They're trying to figure out what the world is like and how they fit and what they think about things, how they're going to, process different relationships and how, yeah, just how to think about everything. So being able to teach them from a biblical worldview. Okay, what does the Bible say about that? Like, okay, like, well, the Bible actually talks about, like being selfless and yet being wise. And what does wisdom look like? Okay, let's look at the word and those kinds of things. So like some of our most precious times were those times in the morning where we would start out our day with, like oftentimes we'd worship, we'd put on some worship music and, dance around the house or whatever. And like with little kids, like I often had flags or tambourines or, like making a ruckus, but they were getting to know, like, okay, this song looks like, is talking about this. What does that look like to you? Like, how can you express that to the Lord? Or, when they were little, or maybe that looks like, breaking out the piano and the instruments. My family's musical. So, just worshiping together and praying together, and the beautiful thing about it is that you've got time and you can make that a priority, like how much time that will take. And maybe it looks like 15 minutes one day. Maybe it looks like an hour and a half the next. Maybe it looks like, okay, what, just take some time right now and go respond to the Lord. What does that look like? Go and journal language. Go and journal what the Lord showed you with this. And so there's lots of curriculum out there, or just not even curriculum, just like do a Bible study with your kids, or like, and if for a little while there we even put an audio Bible on, where we painted and just listened to the Bible so we could listen in bigger sections. My voice wouldn't get worn out, so there's just so many different things that you can do when you commit your way to the Lord. And your kids learn from a young age that this is priority, that, like math might not be a priority, like, yes, it is, but it's not as high a priority as the word, as prayer, as worship, as being thankful and looking at our circumstances and, like relationships through biblical eyes. I think that sets up a wonderful foundation for the rest of their lives. That's essentially what I was going to talk about, was just the importance of making that a priority and getting creative and inspiring a love for the word and a love for the Lord in your kids. And that builds an incredible relationship that you'll have your whole life through.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. We were going to talk about chores and how to, when we have a bad day. Jilene, you are actively homeschooling. And do you want to talk a little bit about what a bad day, how do you get through a bad day and what do you do?
Oh yeah. So first off, expect those to happen. I think that if you're kind of approaching this thinking that it's just going to be all easy and just beautiful, and there's definitely going to be those sweet, beautiful moments, but sometimes you're going to have bad days. I find my own personal attitude generates a lot of those kind of experiences. And I think as moms, we have to kind of really learn to control our own expectations and our own emotions. And then our kids will kind of watch what we do and they'll follow that example. So I think, just sometimes you just need a little bit of a break. Sometimes you need to just get outside and run off some energy. Sometimes you just need to, shake it off. Like try something else, do something different. Yeah, just expect that those bad days are going to happen. Recentering yourself. I think for me, music, I always just love music. I love worship. I love that. And I think putting on a good song and just kind of dancing your bad attitude out can be a really big game changer for the home environment sometimes. Or just putting things on pause for a little bit and just be like, okay, we're going to be done for now. We're just going to go move on to the next thing. Right. And just know that tomorrow's a new day. I would just caution somebody, if you have a day or a bad week or a bad month, that can happen. It's part of the journey. It will not always be like that. So just expect it and know that you're not alone with that. I think we can look, especially with social media being so influential in our lives these days, we can look at somebody's social media and think like everything is pretty and perfect and awesome all the time. And look at this mom, she's just so patient and kind and loving and she never loses her temper. The reality is it's likely not the situation, right? So we see a highlight reel of somebody else's life. Just know that that comparison is a thief of joy. We all feel discouraged at times. We all have bad days. And in those moments, just like take a moment to pause and breathe and really remember why you started this, why you're doing this to begin with. Don't ever quit on your bad days, right? Don't ever take that bad day and use it as a reason to quit. If you want to quit, quit on your best day, right? That can be just such an important thing to remember and to just refocus that we all have those. And I find like those homeschool conventions, we don't have them in BC anymore. And if they do, let me know because I can't really find them, but they are so valuable because I find particularly as you get to like March, April in the year, you kind of stop and you're like, why am I doing this? And kind of plugging into that community again and just refocusing on why. Why are you homeschooling? Why are you putting all this effort out there? It can just change everything. And I find that those homeschool conferences, if you can get one, do it. If you have to travel to go to one, do it. They're so valuable because you're reminded you're not alone. You're renewed. Why is there? It's present. And it can be such a game changer. So be encouraged. I hope that it encourages you. I have bad days all the time. We have family fights all the time. I have some very spirited children and it just happens, right? So don't be discouraged. We all go through it. So
I'm
I
just
love
coming
it.
back in here from being off. So hopefully someone else didn't say this already. I'm assuming you're talking about what do you do when you have a bad day? And one of the things that I have in my notes is like an early on, I talked a little bit earlier about my struggle and, you know, feeling like all my ugly was coming out and everything. One of the things that I learned in that season of my life was that it was a prime example for me to humble myself before my children and to acknowledge before them that I was as much of a sinner as they were, and I was as much in need of a savior as my children were. Instead of putting myself up on a pedestal and like teaching them, like, these are all the things that you're doing wrong, and these are all the things that you have to improve on, and, you know, just kind of lording things over, you know, you bring yourself down and be like, I'm just like you. Like, I make mistakes. I need Jesus. I need him to change my heart. I need him to help me cope with my days. I have bad days just like you. And then you get to practice this reciprocal forgiveness with one another and mercy and grace and understanding. And I have found that probably that's the single most human and yet most godly thing that hinges all of my relationship with my kids on, is for them to see that I'm just regular like them and that we all need Jesus, like wherever we are. And what a beautiful thing to be able to convey to your kids, right?
Absolutely. Thank you, both of you. Those were really wise words. We're just going to land on this last question here about when discouragement sets in, how do I keep going? And the kind of discouragement I'm questioning is, so let's say it's January and February and the days are dark and it's raining or snow and it's cold and the kids are fighting and you're tired. And you're just going, what am I doing and why am I doing this? What keeps you ladies going? And I'll just say for me, I made that decision around grade 7-ish with my oldest that we were gonna, grade 6, maybe grade 7. No, we're doing this for the long haul. We're gonna do this right to the end, no matter what. And for all of my kids, we're just gonna do this. Because I had more good days than I had hard days, but I did have days where I wondered, I don't know if I could do this. So what keeps you girls going when you were having those days?
I think support from your spouse is really important, and not isolating yourself. Almost all the time when I'm having a rough time, I haven't done my due diligence about not just making sure my kids are good, but making sure that I'm okay. And you know, being intentional about getting together with other homeschool moms, whether that's at a co-op that's run by parents, whether that's at a sports homeschool event and, you know, your kids are doing stuff and you get to socialize with the other parents, or whether that's, it's been, I want to say at least a decade now, myself and 4 other homeschool moms who were traveling to New Brunswick for the homeschool conference, gelled relationship. And we just decided at that time that we would get together on a regular basis and see one another. And that morphed into, you know, as parents, no one ever really celebrates you when you have your birthday very well. So we started going out to celebrate each other's birthday for dinner. And there's 5 of us. So at least 5 times a year, we're getting together. We're spending several hours pouring out our hearts, seeking, you know, information and counsel from one another. And they have been like a lifeline to me. And we have a private little Facebook group where we sometimes will vent on there or ask for prayer for our day or share scripture or funny memes and just check in with one another about how we're doing. So I think it's so necessary that you are intentional about not isolating yourself, because we're not meant to just go it alone. And we need to know that we're not alone in our struggles. So that's number 1. And number 2 is, I don't know who coined this, but the BYC day, which is because you can, meaning if you're having a hard season with your family, it is okay to take a day off. If the educational part of things is completely obliterating your relationship, that's no good for anyone. That, like, we do not want education over relationship. We want relationship to be in good standing, first with the Lord and then with each other, and then education to be a byproduct of that. And so sometimes you need to take a BYC day, a because you can day, whether that's, you know what, we're going to go to the cafe and get a treat, and we're going to go to the park. We're going to go and see if, you know, this family wants to meet with us, or, you know what, we're going to have a pajama day and do a movie marathon, or we're going to, whatever it is, to just be like, let's just shift our focus off of like the pressure that we're feeling, that we're instilling in this environment. We got to get it done. And we got to, you know, because we as parents, you know, are trying to be so diligent. And sometimes I know for me, I've lost sight of the purpose of why I'm doing this. And it's just important to take a step back and just to be like, you know what? My kids are overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. They're having many bad days in a row. I'm having many bad days in a row. This is not fun. This is not enjoyable. This is not productive. Even like we're not like it's almost like you're beating a dead horse. You're wanting to be productive, but you're not being productive because everybody's miserable. Just take a step back. This is why we have the flexibility of homeschooling, is to put in back into focus what should be in the center: Christ, then our family, then education, not in a mixed order of that, and give yourself time to just remember why you love your kids and remember why you're at home with them. And I'm going to start crying, but like, cherish the days that you have, because, you know, now I'm at the other end and I'm like, I feel so grateful that we homeschooled. I'm going into year 14. I have bought back for myself and for my kids more hours and more relationship having them at home than I could if I had sent them away. But you know what the truth is? It doesn't feel like enough even now. And so it's so important that we make relationship first, and we just cherish and sit where we are and like take one day at a time and put our kids first and just love them and enjoy them while we can. Oh, sorry.
I love it. This is beautiful. Thank you. Lori or Jilene, do you want to add to that?
I love that, Emily. Thank you for just being vulnerable, because I completely agree with everything you just said. And just having graduated my youngest, I'm feeling that too. I'm just going, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that I had all that time with them, but at the same time, I wish it was longer. So yes, and I can just add to that saying like connection is the most important thing. So, like God and connecting with your kids, right? So if you're having many bad days in a row, let's maybe take a step back and look at like, okay, what's going on? And let's maybe get some resources or, pick up a book or talk to friends. As women, we are made for relationship. We're made to do life together and we thrive doing. Find some good friends. Just like Emily was saying, I've got some of those ladies in my life too that I realized that they've mentored me. I poured into them, like it's been amazing. And we've done life together. We've done the highs and the lows and everything. And instead of sometimes your kids getting the brunt of it, sometimes it's just good to have a friend that you can just relate with and cry with and can see all your messy. Yeah, that's such or us, right? So yes, I completely agree. Pushing through on, if you're having many hard days in a row or weeks or whatever, just take a step back, especially if you're just getting going. I don't think we mentioned that, but it takes some time to get a rhythm. It takes some time if you've just pulled your kids out of school and they've been in school for a while, it's going to take some time. I just even say like the first year, maybe even 2, it's just going to take some time to figure out, okay, let's not school at home. Let's actually figure out how we're going to do this and how we're going to live life, how we're going to our priorities and learning styles and teaching styles and all those things. So just give yourself grace. And if you've been doing this for a while and you just need a refresh, maybe you need to look at your curriculum. Like Jilene was saying, like just taking a look and going, okay, their love of learning is waning. What can we do? What subject is giving them the most grief? And again, like I was saying before, sometimes it's that brain development. Honestly, sometimes they're just not ready for that. So move on and tackle that again another time. So just taking a step back and having that conversation with a friend or with your husband, or just getting a bigger view on, okay, what's going on? Is it me? Maybe it needs to be even something like counseling. Maybe it needs to be a few days away at a friend's or something like that. Just take a step back and go, what's going on here? And like Doris said, like we made that decision that, yeah, we're doing this. This is what we do. And so how are we going to do this well?
Yes, and also this idea, like you said, it takes some time to develop your habits and it also takes some time to develop some confidence that what you're doing is the right thing and that you're doing it well, that you're accomplishing what you're hoping to. And when I say it takes some time, I mean like at least 2 years for me because really comparison is a threat to our success. And it's so easy when you're starting out to look to your right and to your left and just see what other people are doing. I've shared this story a lot, but unit studies was not my like positive thing in my life, because one of these days when we were at music lessons, one of this family, we're all took turns bringing in snacks, and one family brought in cake, but their cake was like Egyptian pyramids. And they were all like, we're doing a unit study on Egypt and this and this. And I was just like, I just felt so inferior and inadequate. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And that was a big learning moment for me. Not immediately, but as I processed and unpacked that, to be okay with the fact that even if I chose the exact same curriculum as what you guys were doing, it's going to look completely different in my house than it does in yours, because we're dealing with different personalities, different learning styles, different family dynamics, different pressures, all of that. And so took me a long time to realize to stop. It's okay to look and learn, but the comparison, to stop that it was actually a threat to my own success, and to plant myself in the Lord and ask him to lead me and to guide me every day on what I was supposed to do and where I was supposed to go and how I was supposed to do it with my brood, my little brood. and be confident that he was leading me well, and that it's okay to learn from other people, but I don't have to look to my left or right. We have good things happening here too, that probably other people are looking at going, gosh, we're not doing that, right? Like, we just need to spend some time cultivating our relationship with God and developing that confidence to see that God has our own path for us, and he will direct us accordingly. And we don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing. We can just trust in God.
Such good advice. Thank you for that. Jilene, did you want to add to that?
Well, these women both just said so many beautiful, amazing things that just resonate with my heart so much. The only thing I would add, like when you're having those recurring bad days, remember, like one of the best lessons I heard was you can't serve from an empty vessel. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so if we've had a lot of those bad days, oftentimes it's because my cup is empty. And maybe it's because my relationships and my priorities have just gotten askew from where they should be, right? And so sometimes it's needing to pause and take some time away and just to kind of recenter and refresh and make sure my priorities are the way that they should be. God first, my husband next, then come the kids, right? And oftentimes, especially as a homeschool family, that can get reversed. And somehow the kids end up at the top as the top priority, and then everything else starts to fall away. So I've noticed that in my own life, if I start to get those priorities mixed up, things can just kind of get a little bit off-centered. So getting those back in order, refilling my cup, spending some time with a friend. If you have another homeschool family, another mom that you connect with, a friend, a sister, it can mean so much just to take a couple of days to just fill that cup up so you can come back refreshed to serve your family and to serve your kids again, right? And then the other thing is just if you are having that extended period, maybe that's that time to pivot. Maybe it's that time that you've persevered through something, but it just is not working with your family, and you can start to see like, there goes the love of learning. We need to maybe do some pivots. And then the other thing I just want to say, because I think it can be so discouraging, and I don't know, I'm sure there's other families that feel this too. My kids are not like, I want mom to be my teacher. They don't. They actually would prefer that they went somewhere else and had somebody else be their teacher, which is heartbreaking to me. And I had one day with my oldest who was constantly asking to go to school. My son, who's 13 now, was just like really in that stage where he was like, I really just want to go. Like, I don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 whatever. She actually looked at him and she said to him, you know what? I'm actually so grateful that I didn't go back to school all of those times that I was asking, because I can see that mom loves us more than anybody, and she's doing what she knows is right for us. And it was just that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, they were learning, they were seeing my heart for them, and knowing that despite the conflict, despite that the pushback, that at the end of the day, they can look back and say, we were on the right path, and that mom loved me and was doing the absolute best that she could with what she had, right? And so I hope that that's encouraging for people, is that yeah, just remember your goal, remember your why, remember why you started. And even in those periods where you're getting that pushback, maybe from your kids or, you know, the world or your family out there who, by the way, like if the grandparents are like, what are you doing homeschooling these kids? They need to be socialized. They're not your children. They're not their children, right? You're the one who needs to lead them. Just limit those voices as well, because those can be so discouraging. But yeah,
And
just remember your why.
chances are, just give them some time. They'll see the fruit of everything in due time, and it will all be good. But just stay
Stay the course.
stay true. Yeah, stay the course.
Stay the course. I want to put a little plug in there for grandmas, because now I'm a grandma of 7, and they're all, a couple of them, actually 1, 2, 3 are starting homeschooling next week. And my kids want me to be involved. And I just have got thinking, like, if you folks have parents that want to be involved, or you want them to be involved, give them something that they can contribute, whether it's a day outside or a day doing, I don't know, auto mechanics, or a day doing learning how to cook a meal, or sewing, or take them to the pool. There's all kinds of things. So that gives mom and maybe dad too a break. And it gives them a chance to be with their grandparents. And grandparents want to be involved. Not all, but many do want to be involved. And it's a beautiful season. And for Lori and Emily, when that season comes, it's so exciting. You know, I mean, I had those gap years where nothing, you know, my kids were graduated, they were working on their lives. Now they're parents. It's a beautiful season to come back into and to look forward to. So I encourage anybody in the audience here to engage those people, and also engage anybody outside of your family who's highly skilled, to either mentor or to teach a skill. Those are great opportunities for learning as well. So we're going to wrap up here. If you ladies had a 1 minute closing comment, what would you say? Laura, you want to start?
Oh goodness, you can do it. Just enjoy your kids. Like, that's probably the biggest thing, is just enjoy your kids and make priorities and stick to them. Pivot when you need to, like Jilene was saying. And yeah, just set your priorities. Like, okay, God's going to be first in this family. I'm going to set the example. And yeah, just enjoy your kids, but know yourself that you know, like, I needed structure, and I really thrived, and my kids thrived when I had some structure, but lots of flexibility too, and being able just to take those opportunities just to make memories together. So you can do it.
Thank you. Emily?
Gosh, you did well, Lori. I just echo what she said. And I think I was going to say the same thing. Like, you can do it. You need to be diligent. You need to do your part. If you want to do right by your children, you know that it's an investment, but that it's worthwhile. And yeah, don't count all your chickens before they're hatched. Know that it takes time to see fruit, and trust the process, and listen to other homeschoolers that are seasoned, because I think they have a lot of wise words and a lot of encouragement along the way for you to know, to hang in there when things are tough. And yeah.
Thank you. Jilene?
Just be encouraged. If this is something that's on your heart, it's there for a reason. And I don't think that, you know, you're ever going to regret spending this time leading and teaching and training and discipling the greatest gift that you will ever receive in your life. You know, our kids are only kids for so long. They're going to grow, and God willing, they're going to step out into the world themselves. And remember, you know, we're not raising children, we're raising adults. And to think about what kind of adults we're sending out into the world, these are the next generation that's going to change and shape the world around us. And so the more families that I see taking back their God-given power to raise these adults, to raise this next generation, I can't think of anything more important in the entire world for us to be doing than to sending out God-fearing, loving, amazing humans who are equipped and excited about contributing to the world around them. I think it's just such a special and unique calling we have as parents. And so if that is on your heart, know that there's resources, there's support. I am always happy to chat and encourage a mom or a dad to take this role, because I think it's so needed. It is so needed in this world. And we can shape the world around us through our children. And I think that's the greatest gift that I can leave. The greatest legacy I have is not what the work around me is going to be, but what I can equip my children to raise up, because they're generations. You know, each one of our children represents the next generation and the generations to come. And so let us be those people that are sending out these godly, beautiful generations, because that's truly how we change the world.
Yes, think ahead.
Yeah, generationally, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori Dunbar, Jilene Hay, and Emily Ross for being here today.